This setup creates leaf-like shapes along a path. You can use it to build foliage, write text with leaves for 3D typography, or even make stylish product reveal transitions with it. It also generates procedural textures that you can tweak for endless variations. The whole thing is beginner friendly, so you won't be having trouble following along. This is Ram from CrossMind Studio, and you are watching another chapter of Blender 3D Geometry Nodes Introduction Series for beginners. Let's dive in. We'll start with a simple Bezier curve and go to the Geometry Nodes editor. Here, create a new network. So for now, I'm going to get rid of this group input. We will use it later, but for now, just to get going quickly, I'm going to bring a curve line and use this instead. Don't worry, I will use group input for original curve later in another example. Now, if you bring a curve circle and reduce the resolution a bit, we are going to instance these curved lines on this circle. Reduce the radius of this circle. Now to spread these vertical lines out like grass plums, play with the rotation using either normals or tangents. Both work in this case. We just need a bit of spread. If you type tangent, curve tangent, or you can even use normal. Put this into rotation and this will spread it out like this. Now here, if you add align rotation to vector, you can control things further. Like if some axes are not aligning properly, you can change that and even adjust the factor a bit. Now here, you can also use random value node to randomize the scale of these vertical strands a bit. Just a bit of variation, nothing much. Now once this is done, we need to realize these instances so that we can modify this shape further and do much more with it. Right now, these look like sticks. I want them bending like a grass blade, smooth curve. Now for that, we need more points in between. Right now, these lines have only 2 points, one at the top, one at the bottom. So we can simply resample this curve, and I think 10 points are going to be enough. We can adjust this later if we want. Now to bend these curves, we will need another node, actually a node group. Now if you go to the add list and check out this hair section in deformations, you will find roll hair curves node. Now all these hair node groups also work on curves as well. So we can quickly grab this, put it here, and you will see what it does. It simply rolls these curves and you can adjust the length, roll radius, and the depth of roll and all that from here. So this smooths the curve, bends it nicely, and even adds a bit more resolution automatically. So we have these curves. Now all we need to do is convert this into a mesh. Simply bring curve to mesh and put this here. Now we need a profile curve. So again, a simple curve line should do the job, and put that into profile curve. Now into this profile curve, I'm going to zero out the Z value and instead use X value like this, 0.05 to minus 0.05. The thing is, right now these strands are shaping sideways. Let me see what's going on here. Maybe if I change the direction a bit. Yeah, I think this works. Now this turns the curves into thin stripes, which we can then modify further. In the previous versions, we used to bring set curve radius node for tapering any of these spline objects based on the spline parameter. But now if you notice, in the latest version, within the curve to mesh node itself, there's a scale parameter, which actually does the same job. So instead of having to bring set curve radius, you can directly modify the radius from here. But the thing is, this value right here overrides this one. So it doesn't matter whatever you insert here, this value is going to override it. So that is the only thing you need to keep in mind. Let's say if I bring a spline parameter and plug that into scale here, you can see how this tapers out based on the factor of the spline. Now I can plug the same value here, but you won't see any difference, and this would look like it's not working at this moment. But the thing is, this value is overriding it. So all you need to do is simply plug radius. So this says whatever the radius which is going on here in this network, just pick up that radius. And this does the same job. You can either plug this or do it this way. So to simplify things, Blender Foundation have given us this value here, so you won't have to add extra node every time you need to modify radius when you're converting any geometry from curve to mesh. So this simples out things. Now we have this curve factor, this black to white gradient going on, which represents the factor of the curve. Now what we can do is we can modify this factor with the help of a color ramp. So now imagine this is the factor of the spline. Whatever I modify here will change the radius accordingly. So what if I taper the bottom part and use the brighter part and slide it to the middle because leaves are wider at the center, and use another value, darken it out so that it tapers again at the top. If you want, you can use ease here so that shapes are much smoother. So these leaves are not bending out properly. I mean, the orientation is not following the circle which we used for instancing. So here in the roll direction, I think this is where the things are getting a bit messy. I'm simply going to sample curve. This curve that we used for instancing, I'm going to sample this curve and use its tangent for roll direction. I'll have to bring align rotation to vector and maybe change the direction of this profile curve that we used. I'm going to copy this value in the X and zero out Y. Now this is much better. Now before we start shading this, we need to extract a bit of information of these curves from geometry node itself. There are two curves. One is this one, which is the vertical strands, and one is this curve, which is the profile curve. So both of these have spline parameters. If I visualize these, this is the profile curve. So this black to white value and this one. So all of these splines have these factors. But the thing is, by default, these are not really stored on these splines. So if I bring store named attribute, one for this curve and one for this curve, so we can store these factors. Let's call this one length and this one width. So now if I bring a named attribute, you'll see what this does is, I'll just copy paste these names. Now if you visualize on this geometry, you can see now these attributes, these spline parameters are stored on this geometry. For length, we have this black to white traveling value across the vertical curves. And for width, we have this profile curves spline parameter. Now both of these are stored on this geometry. Now the fun part is we can now use these for shading purpose. First, let's just set material, and we have a simple material already in the scene. We can simply rename it and go to the shader editor. Now the fun part is we can use those attributes in the shader editor as well. If you simply type length, just make sure the spellings are correctly matched, whatever name you used. Now you can see both of these attributes are working in shader editor as well, and I'm using rendered view. Now the interesting thing is you can use this and do much more with it with math functions. If I bring a math node and put it here, with the help of float modulo, you can sort of repeat this texture, these values again and again, which you can use to shape blades of these leaves. Now how we are going to do that? Let me explain. The thing is, let's say if I bring a add node and add any value into this, what this value will do is it's going to shift the entire thing based on this value. Positive values are going to push it further and the opposite is going to push it backwards. Now instead of this, what if I take these values, which is the factor of the width spline, and use this to drive this add value? Now you'll see this weird effect, but let me show you what's happening here. Now if I take a multiply node and zero it out, effect of this width attribute is set to 0. But notice what's happening here. If I increase it, Now texture is pushing from one side. That's because instead of using flat value like this, we are using a gradient, which is basically the factor of this spline. So wherever the white values are, only there it's pushing the texture further. Now what this would mean is, if I bring a ramp node, color ramp, let's get rid of this multiply node and delete this node. So we only have white value. So with the help of this ramp node, we can add a bit more in-betweens. So instead of flat values, we can use multiple nodes, multiple colors, and sort of create a pinching in between like this. So I think I'll have to invert these values. Maybe push these up a bit, copy the same value here as well, and move this down a bit. You can add few more in-betweens and sort of create a curve rather than just a flat line. You can keep on adding in-betweens and smooth it out if you want. So using a different mode also helps creating a smoother transition. Now, if you want to sort of smooth out these transitions of values, you can again re-ramp it. If I add another color ramp node here, so now instead of these harsh transitions, you have much smoother ins and outs. So now this is done. All we need is a center line. For that, I can use the same width attribute and use another ramp. And here we can darken the center value and add another white value. Push it here. Make it something like this, and then we can mix both of these with mix color node, change this to maybe darken or something, and adjust the factor. You can also map range this leaf texture if you find it a bit too faded, something like this. So you have this texture and all you need to do is just add some color into this, bring another color ramp, and here you can add shades of green like this, maybe few warmer shades like this, and some in betweens if you want. And you can also bring hue saturation node. But instead of changing the hue of all the leaves, I want these leaves to have random hues. For that, if you bring a geometry node and use random per island, for every mesh island, there will be a different hue. Now you can map range this. Make sure it stays close to what the actual value is. Just a slight offset. So this node only works in cycle, so I'll have to shift to render preview. Like this maybe. And as for the material, I'm going to use something really simple. Instead of principled BSDF, I'll bring subsurface scattering and a translucent shader. I'm going to mix both of these shaders with the help of layer weight. If I enable HDR in the background, you'll see. So I just want translucency in certain parts, like wherever it's against the light or something, there we'll see some translucency, this thing, and in other parts we'll just see subsurface material. So in the color, I'm going to use this for both the materials, for both the shaders, and the same value right before the color ramp. These gray values we can use for bump map and put this into normals. Now for subsurface scattering, I'm going to increase the scale here, and let's see if I can tweak the shape, tweak the overall look a bit. And for hue as well, I think something like this should look fine. So these look stylized, but you can just play with the colors a bit and settle for something which is a bit more realistic. Now our setup is done. If you go to geometry node editor, these leaves don't have any thickness. We can actually use extrude mesh node and give it slight thickness, maybe 0.02 or something, 0.002, and merge it with original geometry and then merge by distance. I think we'll have to tweak the shader a bit. This extrude node leaves a bit of hollow geometry behind, like this. So if you combine that with the original geometry, you can sort of create a solid with the help of this merge by distance node. I see a bit of difference in colors. I think I'll have to remap it. I'm just going to bring one simple light in between. And simply testing how well this transparency, this blend is working. I think it looks all right. So now your setup is done. As you can see, since everything is procedural, you can keep on tweaking things, maybe increase the radius, increase the number of leaves you want, the randomization, roll it further, spread it out, do many more things with it. Everything is open right in front of you, and that's the fun part about doing things procedurally. This is one thing. If I bring a shader editor here, I'll just name this one as leaves, this geometry node network. Now I'll make a duplicate of this, and I'll also make a duplicate of this material and call this one grass. Now here I'm going to change the texture a bit, maybe change the modulo values or bring in one more multiply node in between and sort of stretch it out like this. Now if I mix this shader further with another transparent shader, now here I can use these gray values as a factor for this mix shader, and we can map range this. I hope you can see it. So with the help of this map range, we can sort of make it transparent in between. It will make it look like sort of grass blades. I think I'll have to stretch it further. Before this, if I color ramp this and invert this thing, yeah, now it looks much better. Now this way you can easily make it look like a multiple grass strands. So I can keep on changing this texture and form different kind of blades for different leaves. And if you want, you can also simply bring a simple grid, and on this grid, distribute few points. And on this, we can instance these leaves that we have made. We'll have to separate out rotation so that we can randomize z-axis like this, and we can also randomize scale a bit. Maybe increase the density of grass 5000 points, and you have a simple setup for grass. For more variation, you can also make multiple clumps and use a collection of it. So this is another use. And also, I'll just call this one grass, make another duplicate. And here, if I go back to the original geometry, I'll get rid of these instances. So if you remember, we had group input at the start, which is our original curve. If I go to edit mode, this is the original curve that we started with, which we didn't use. Instead, we brought in this curve line. So what if I get rid of this curve line and this curve circle and all these instances and simply use this line that we have made? You'll also have to get rid of this roll curve here. And this is much simpler setup now. And now wherever you move the points of this curve, this entire generated shape of leaves will follow along. So you can simply extrude it and create a 3D type face with it if you want. You'll have to increase the resolution a bit. For curves, you have this radius parameter and tilt parameter. So tilt is working, but radius is not working. That's because we have this spline factor in this radius. Now, what if I bring a add node, and into this I bring radius and plug it into this, change this to multiply. What this will do is, on top of existing this spline parameter, whatever is tapering this curve, creating the shape of leaf, we also have control over radius, which we change from viewport. Like you can simply press Alt S and scale the radius of this, press Ctrl T and change the tilt of it. So now if I want, I can write anything with it. So I'll just get rid of these 2 points, create a fresh one. Here I can extrude another curve, extrude again, change the radius, change the tilt with Ctrl T, Shift D and create a new one, extrude it again. So now the same setup, instead of instances, we are using it on a original curve, a simple Bezier curve. So now this is so much fun to work with. And now the interesting thing is, you have this letter. Now if you take all of these lines right before curve to mesh, now on top of these lines you can add another effect from hair tool. You have guides curl hair curve. If you use this, you can simply curl these curves, and now you can make another duplicate and join with the existing one. For this, you can reduce the radius, and so you can keep on adding secondary effects. So this original curve is going here, and there is another copy of it which is using curl hair curves. So now whatever you write, if you go to the edit mode, Shift D to add a new point, and maybe extrude it out like this. Pardon my poor execution at this moment. I'm just roughly working. Things never work out perfectly when you're recording a tutorial. I hope you get the point. It's not so bad. So this is second example. Now I'll go back to the original node tree, which is leaves. Now here another interesting thing you can do, instead of instancing lines on this curve circle, what if we switch both of these? What this will do is, on this line, the 2 points of this line, it's going to instance this circle. If we resample this curve, now we have multiple of these circles. Now let's see what's going on here. If I preview this, so we have these circles, minimum and maximum value, and in the rotation, we don't need this. Instead, we are going to rotate these randomly. Combine X, Y, Z. X like this. We'll use separate value for Y axis. Something like this. Let's increase the resolution of this circle, remove the roll hair curve and this sample curve. Now what this will do is, it's going to form leaf-like shape in circular formation on these circles. But right now these circles are well connected and we need broken lines. If I type cyclic, set spline cyclic and make sure this is off. And now we can randomize Z rotation as well. In the profile curve, we'll have to change the axis a bit. I think instead of X axis, if we use Y axis, this will look much better. Let's see the render preview. So now this you can use for creating some interesting transition. Let's say if I bring one rotate instances and plug it here, I can animate this Z value to create a transition. Now here I'm going to bring one combine XYZ to separate out just the Z part, bring one scene time node so that once I play the animation, this will animate over time based on the frame number. Now another interesting thing you can do is use trim curve node. If I bring trim curve node right after this realize instances and set curve cyclic, if I bring a trim curve node in this timeline, at the beginning of this animation, I can animate this end, make it 0, press I, and around frame 20 I can max it up, and you can set a key for this one as well, 0, and exit, and you have so much control over it. Anything you want, rotation, scale, width of this thing, you can still modify it, and that's the fun part about doing things procedurally. You can even tweak things in shader editor, maybe change the hue. Something like this, make it stylized. If you want, you can add one bottle in between. Let's say I have this simple can that I made for a previous chapter. I can insert that in between and create a transition, something like this. Maybe in the shader, I can simply add one transparent shader and mix it with the noise texture. So at the beginning of animation, it goes something like this and then emerges with the help of this texture. So this is pretty rough job, but I hope you get the point. But as you can see, that's the beauty of doing things procedurally. Not only you can repurpose things and do much more with it, you can keep on adding stuff. If you come up with some ideas later on, you can incorporate those ideas without having to starting from scratch. Much more easier to explore in a procedural setup. And this is actually one of the sample from my recent course that I launched a few months ago, Procedural Thinking, Small Steps to Big Ideas. And this topic is covered in more detail in our latest course, which we released a few months ago. You can find the link in the description with discount coupon. There's also a course trailer, which gives you a run through of entire thing. The thing about this course is it shows you, instead of getting into really complex methods, how you can use your daily existing simple thinking that you apply in everyday models and convert that into node trees and make simple things which can accelerate your daily production. So if you like this video, check out the course details. Links are in the description and use the discount code provided. There's also a full trailer on this channel, and if you enjoyed this, give it a like and subscribe. YouTube doesn't always show the full playlist, so if you are new to geometry nodes, check out the previous chapters in the series. And if you're a beginner, completely new to geometry node, I would suggest that you watch this series in correct order to make the most out of it. And some of the nodes have been changed in geometry nodes network. That's completely all right. I have mentioned those changes in pinned comment and description, so you won't have trouble following along. And this series is still relevant to the current version of Blender. And also, if you're just starting out with Blender, our free beginner series, which recently crossed 5 million views, is still one of the best places to begin learning Blender. And if you're looking for more in-depth content, check out my premium courses on Gumroad and Superhive Market, which was previously known as Blender Market. They are on sale and a lot of students have found them super useful. You can see the students' work here as well. There are plenty more useful playlists on this channel as well. Be sure to check those out. I hope you enjoyed this chapter. I'll see you in the next one. Have a great day. Thank you.